Two of the world's biggest economies, the United States and China, are struggling.
Business activity in Shanghai was brought to a standstill for weeks.
Disastrous. I think there is no other word for it.
Welcome back. This is another vlog. This is another video that I'm gonna be continuing on the last week issue, because there's more to know, more for you guys to know about in order for you to survive on this particular issue. I'm Andrea again. The following clips, they are things or main points that I picked from other different YouTubers or news channels, because I want you guys to know it so that you can be able to know how to react and what to do. I'm gonna link their channel links in the description below, just for matter of copyright. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like and share. We appreciate you.
Put your money in the bank, you expect the bank to pay you some interest. Ideally, the bank would lend your money to someone else and collect higher interest. Interest rates on saving accounts, for example, are around 1%, while credit card rates at around 20%. The difference after paying you is the profit that the bank's supposed to make. However, when you check your bank account, it still says that your money is there in the bank and you can withdraw it whenever you want. And that's because of a system we have called fractional reserved banking. Banks are allowed to just keep 10% of their money and lend out the rest. So if your bank account shows that your money is still there, it's actually not. That's not a problem when the economy is doing great. People don't often withdraw all of their savings overnight, especially if it's millions of dollars. A bank is where you hide your money, especially considering the minimal interest they pay you, which is usually significantly lower than inflation. But the moment people feel that their money isn't safe in the bank, they would rush to the banks to withdraw their savings. But because of fractional reserve banking, the banks won't be able to pay people, causing the banks to go bankrupt. 4,000 banks in China are on the verge of going bankrupt. Even if a fraction of those banks collapses, the consequences could be devastating, since that could push the economy into a crisis that would lead the entire economy to collapse. And that's just one side of the problem. The other side is the housing crash that China is facing that we have discussed in the previous video. China banks may face a $350 billion in losses from property crises. S&P Global Rating estimates that 2.4 trillion yuan, or $356 billion, or 6.4% of mortgages, are at risk, while Deutsche Bank AG is warning at least 7% of home loans are in danger. The property market is the foundation of China's economy, which seems like it's about to burst. The government is spending hundreds of billions of dollars to save it, but can only soften the crisis and not avoid it.
But where does that put us, me and you? Maybe, for example, you're like me, we are not in China. Where does that put us? But the only thing that you have to recognize is that China is the second largest economy in the world, which means whatever that happens or collapse or whatever that happens to the economy affects everything, us as individual humans or investors. The other thing that you should be concerned about is that China is the largest exporter, I meant to say, of everything. Everything is made in China. Everything that you see, electronics, cars, machines, the products that come from China. So if their economy collapse, that affects us. If their people, their banks collapse, also that's going to affect the entire world economy. It might cause a global recession, including house market collapsation, including their banks failing to give money to people. That might affect the whole industry, that might affect the whole exportation cycle, and that's where me and you comes in. But listen to this in order for you to know what to do and how to react.
While it might seem like China is wealthy enough to survive on its own without Western companies, look, China is producing smartphones, electric cars, and drones. It can compete with the US. Unfortunately, that is not entirely true. While some Chinese companies have seen great successes like BYD or Huawei, they depend highly on American companies for their components. Take Huawei. The company was growing so fast that it almost overtook Samsung and Apple as the largest smartphone seller in the world. But something went wrong in 2019 when the United States imposed sanctions on the company. Despite Huawei's technological might, it highly depended on semiconductors, the most important component in a smartphone. And if you take a look at the companies that dominate this sector, they're all Americans. Think of Nvidia, Intel, Qualcomm, Broadcom, AMD, etc. The other three companies that are not US companies, such as TSMC, ASML, or Samsung, highly depend on American companies such as Cadence or Synopsys to design their chips. That's why after American sanctions, the company is barely surviving. How China will escape the middle-class trap and develop new technologies without relying on the West is a challenge that China will have to overcome over the next decade. Will it be able to do that once most of the US companies will leave the country? Is another big question.
The issue is probably not going to happen anytime soon, and most likely it's going to serve as a reminder that each country will have to adapt for the option of producing their own materials in-house to avoid future shortages. Realistically though, it seems like the most plausible scenario is that both the United States and the Euro area experience near zero growth next year with negative knockoff effects throughout the rest of the world, which basically means the economy will need to cool off before pushing forward. But at least for the foreseeable future, it's probably a good idea just to cut back on what you spend, keep a diligent budget, save as much as you can, invest as usual, and stay employed, because most likely we're going to have to wait for these conditions to improve before the economy can continue growing again. And hopefully by the time that happens, it'll be in a way that benefits everybody. So with that said, you guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, feel